Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Learn and Talk English podcast. I'm Emily, your host, and I'm thrilled you're joining us today. Here on our show, we help you improve your English by covering engaging topics and providing real-life examples of how to use specific phrases. In this episode, we'll be exploring love stories and the romantic expressions often used in English. By the time we finish, you'll be familiar with phrases like, "My heart skips a beat," "You mean the world to me," and "I've fallen deeply in love with you." We'll show you how to incorporate these expressions into your own speech so you can sound more natural and confident when discussing feelings of love and affection. We have two very special stories lined up for you today, each highlighting different contexts and romantic expressions. They'll be told by our guest Maria, who has kindly agreed to share them on behalf of her friends. After each story, we'll break down the key vocabulary, phrases, and usage tips so you'll understand exactly how to apply what you learn. But first, let me introduce my co-host. Marcus, how are you? And are you as excited about these love stories as I am?
I'm doing great, Emily. I can't wait for our listeners to hear these stories. Love is such a universal experience, and talking about it in English often requires specific words and phrases that convey deep emotions. We'll be pointing out the subtle nuances, everything from how to say, "I can't take my eyes off you," in a sincere way, to describing the heartbreak of being separated from someone you truly care about. I also want to emphasize that each story will demonstrate these phrases in a natural context, making them easier to remember. After we hear the stories, we'll spend some time discussing and explaining the language. We encourage you to listen carefully, jot down any new expressions, and practice them yourself. Emily, shall we begin with the first story?
Absolutely. Maria has two wonderful stories to tell, but let's start with the first one. Listen carefully for romantic expressions or any words that highlight love, emotion, or commitment. We'll unpack them afterward.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Learn and Talk English podcast. My friend Alyssa grew up in a serene coastal town known for its stunning shores and warm, welcoming community. Every morning, she helped her father run their little bakery, a place cherished by both locals and passing tourists. One sunny day, a traveler strolled in, looking a bit tired from the road, but still flashing a gentle smile. From the moment Alyssa saw him, she felt her heart skip a beat. He became a regular customer, dropping by the bakery each day. At first, Alyssa thought she couldn't take her eyes off him simply because he was new in town. But over time, she realized she was drawn to his kindness and the curiosity he had about her hometown. She confided in me once, whispering, "I never believed in soulmates until I met him." However, the joyful days they spent chatting over pastries and coffee were short-lived. He revealed that he had a long journey ahead to continue his travels. Alyssa felt a pang in her heart, realizing she was falling deeply in love with a person who would soon be gone. Determined to make the most of his remaining time, she accompanied him on walks by the shore, pointing out her favorite spots, like a hidden cove and a craggy outcrop that overlooked the sea. On his last morning in town, just before he climbed back into his car, Alyssa handed him a small seashell she had picked up during one of their walks. She said softly, "Keep this with you so you'll always remember this place. And me." Then she leaned in and whispered, "You mean the world to me?" He promised he would come back someday, although neither of them knew exactly when that would be. Long after he drove away, Alyssa told me, "I love him more than words can express, and I'll be right here, waiting." In the weeks that followed, Alyssa and the traveler exchanged contact information and began talking through social media. Their messages quickly went beyond polite greetings. They shared updates on their daily routines and swapped photos of life in their separate worlds. He posted pictures from the towns he visited, detailing local foods, breathtaking viewpoints, and interesting people he met, while Alyssa sent snapshots of the bakery's fresh pastries or the sun rising over the ocean at dawn. Late at night, they often stayed up texting, comparing experiences and laughing over voice notes that made them feel a little less lonely. During one conversation, he admitted how much he missed her company and how the seashell she had given him was now a treasured keepsake he carried everywhere he went. Moved by his honesty, Alyssa confessed that not a day passed when she didn't think of him. Despite being separated by countless miles, they felt closer than ever. Eventually, they agreed they would make every effort to meet again during the next holiday season. Alyssa started saving money and thinking about possibly visiting him on his travels while he promised to set aside time to return to her coastal town. They both believed that the bond they had built, sparked by a single chance encounter, was worth pursuing, no matter how difficult the distance. Through their daily messages, late-night calls, and occasional video chats, they remained convinced that love could grow stronger, even if it stretched across different cities, states, and experiences. And for Alyssa, waiting for his return no longer felt like a lonely vigil, but rather a hopeful pause before the next chapter of their journey together could begin.
That was such a heartfelt story. I hope our listeners caught on to the extra details about how Alyssa and the traveller stayed connected after he left. There were so many lovely expressions, both about the initial attraction and the deeper bond they formed through social media. Marcus, did any particular phrases or themes stand out to you?
Definitely. One of the classic expressions we heard was, "My heart skips a beat," which typically conveys excitement, nervousness, or awe when thinking about or seeing someone you deeply care about. It's a staple phrase you'll often hear in songs, movies, and everyday romantic speech in English.
And of course, "I can't take my eyes off him" came up again, painting a vivid picture of strong attraction. It's used when someone fascinates you to the point where you find it hard to look away. This expression tells us Alyssa was immediately drawn to his presence.
Right? Then there's the very bold, "I never believed in soulmates until I met him." It highlights how a single person can redefine your entire view on love, suggesting that Alyssa's experience with this traveler was nothing short of life-changing.
Another iconic phrase is, "You mean the world to me." As we mentioned before, it's a powerful statement. You wouldn't typically use it casually. It's more reserved for someone you have a profound bond with. It's interesting that Alyssa chose this moment to reveal just how deeply she cared for him right before he left.
Exactly. But with this new, expanded version of the story, we also learned they exchanged contact information and started messaging each other on social media after he left. Alyssa got to stay up late, texting and sharing pictures, which introduced a few more expressions related to long-distance affection. For instance, the way they each said they missed each other, or that they think about each other every single day, can also be strong indicators of emotional intimacy in English.
Yes. And we heard about the seashell he carried around. A simple item but infused with emotional significance. That's another interesting concept in English. We often talk about cherishing keepsakes or treasuring a token from someone special. If you find yourself wanting to talk about a similar memento in English, you might say, "I carry it with me wherever I go," or "I treasure it because it reminds me of our time together."
Good point, Emily. And remember, "I love him more than words can express," is another phrase that suggests words can't fully capture the depth of one's emotions. This is useful when you don't want to sound repetitive by just saying, "I love you so much."
Exactly. We also see in this updated story how they decided to meet during the next holiday. That gives us more language around planning future get-togethers, like, "Let's make plans for the holiday," "I can't wait to see you again," or "We'll do whatever it takes to meet in person." These are all useful expressions if you're talking about scheduling or looking forward to reuniting with someone.
So, listeners, try practicing phrases like, I'm saving up so we can meet again, or our bond is worth the distance. These lines can be woven into conversations about maintaining or nurturing a long-distance relationship.
Exactly. That leads perfectly into the next story. Keep these expressions in mind, both the classic ones like my heart skips a beat, and the new ones that have to do with long-distance commitment and planning. By the end of our next story, you'll have an even broader set of phrases to describe deep affection and future hopes.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the next story now and see what new language we can pick up. Maria is ready to share, so let's hand the mic back to her.
This second story is about my friend Paul, who lived in a bustling city overflowing with skyscrapers, neon signs, and an endless hum of vehicles. Despite the crowds and bright lights, he often felt invisible among strangers. The daily grind, long commutes, hectic schedules, and relentless noise made him yearn for a more profound connection and a sense of belonging. One rainy afternoon, gray clouds swept in, releasing a sudden downpour that caught Paul without warning. Seeking refuge from the sheets of rain, he hurried into a cozy cafe tucked away on a narrow side street. As he closed his umbrella and shook off his damp jacket, he noticed a woman at a corner table, quietly practicing her guitar. Her name was Caroline. She wore simple, comfortable clothing, focusing intently on each chord as though every note carried a piece of her heart. Intrigued by her gentle presence, Paul began making a friendly remark about the dreary weather. Caroline looked up, smiled, and replied that the rain often sparked her creativity. The moment they chatted, they discovered a shared passion for folk music. Caroline regularly performed at open mic nights on weekends, while Paul fondly recalled the acoustic records that had guided his childhood. Later, he confided that he had never felt so in tune with anyone else, not just because of their musical interests, but because of an unspoken understanding that seemed to connect them from the outset. From that day on, they made a habit of meeting, at the cafe, on weekday evenings when work was done, or on slow Sunday mornings when they could sip cappuccinos without rushing. They swapped new artist recommendations, debated song lyrics, and discussed the emotional core of music. Occasionally, Caroline would bring her guitar, strumming gentle melodies that seemed to hush the chaotic city beyond the cafe walls. Paul often said that every moment with Caroline felt like a precious gift, reflecting just how much light she brought into his life. What stood out most was Caroline's refreshing outlook on life. In a city obsessed with speed and achievement, she believed in simplicity, creativity, and authentic human bonds. Over time, their connection deepened through late-night texts, spontaneous jam sessions, and heartfelt conversations that wandered, from silly anecdotes to big-picture dreams. Sometimes they envisioned a future collaborating on original tracks, or traveling to folk festivals in distant places. Then came a pivotal piece of news. Caroline learned she'd been accepted into a prestigious music academy overseas. While thrilled, she worried about leaving behind the burgeoning relationship she shared with Paul. On her final evening in the city, they returned to their familiar corner of the cafe, her guitar leaning gently against her chair as they held hands and spoke in hushed voices. Caroline promised, "I'll come back," making it clear she couldn't pass up this chance to refine her craft. Paul offered to follow her, but Caroline encouraged him to keep pursuing his own goals, believing that forcing their paths together might lead to regrets later. Early the next morning, Paul stood at the airport, watching Caroline's plane ascend into the gray sky. He described the feeling as though his heart were breaking, yet a spark of hope remained. In the weeks after her departure, they established a routine of calls, texts, and voice notes. Caroline shared recordings of new pieces she was working on, while Paul recounted stories about life in the city and how different the cafe felt without her gentle guitar chords. As time passed, they found themselves daydreaming about each other's future, from traveling the globe together to immersing themselves in hidden folk music traditions. Whenever Paul felt overwhelmed by deadlines or city life, Caroline's warm messages reminded him of why he believed in love and creativity in the first place. And when Caroline felt homesick or doubtful, Paul cheered her on, assuring her that distance was only temporary. Despite time zones and the ache of separation, Paul remained convinced that music, which had first bonded them, could guide them back to each other. In his own words, he viewed their relationship as a duet, waiting for the perfect moment to reunite. She too held tightly to the faith that returning to Paul's side would be like picking up a cherished melody right where they had left off. For now, they continued to build their separate lives. Caroline honing her musical skills abroad, and Paul furthering his ambitions in the city, trusting that their deep connection and passion for music would one day bring them back to the same cafe corner. Paul's heart still fluttered when he pictured her playing guitar, and Caroline found strength in knowing there was someone an ocean away rooting for her every success. Together, across miles and months, they clung to the promise that love could transcend any distance, as long as the cord tying them together remained unbroken.
That was another beautiful narrative, one that highlighted how music and shared passions can create a strong bond between two people. There were so many great expressions and phrases woven into Paul and Caroline's story. Marcus, what caught your attention first?
Well, the very first phrase that jumped out to me was, "I've never felt so in tune with anyone else." It's such a vivid way to describe that sense of being on the same wavelength. It implies emotional harmony, a feeling that you just click with someone beyond the surface level.
Exactly. And I love how the story continued with every moment with Caroline feels like a precious gift. This expression conveys deep appreciation for even small slices of time together. It's a poetic way to say that you don't take someone's presence for granted.
Right. We also heard, "I'll come back," which, in a romantic context, is more than just a literal return. It's a promise of loyalty, an assurance that the emotional bond can withstand physical distance. The fact that Caroline insists she'll return, despite moving abroad, really shows a commitment to Paul.
We also caught the phrase, "I felt like my heart was breaking," which is a classic way to express profound sadness. And I appreciated the way Paul described their relationship as a duet, waiting for the perfect moment to reunite. This not only references their shared love of music, but also captures the idea that their connection is incomplete without each other.
Definitely. The stories mention that love could transcend any distance is a powerful reminder that physical separation doesn't have to mean the end of a relationship. It's an expression that's useful anytime you want to discuss overcoming challenges for the sake of love or devotion.
For our listeners, consider practicing these expressions by crafting short dialogues where you and a friend imagine a scenario, like a long-distance relationship or a creative collaboration. Use lines such as, "We're just like a duet waiting for our next performance," or "Every moment with you is a precious gift." Incorporating them into conversations or writing makes them easier to remember.
Yes, and remember that context is everything. Some phrases, like, "My heart was breaking," or "I've never felt so in tune with anyone else," carry a lot of emotional weight. They fit best when the feelings are strong or the situation is truly heartfelt.
Great points, Marcus. Now let's move into our final recap. We'll highlight all the key expressions from both stories and share how you can practice them in your everyday English use. Stick around, because we'll also give you a sneak peek of our next episode and share how you can stay connected with us.
We've shared 2 love stories today, each filled with expressions that add depth and emotion to your English. Let's do a quick rundown of our top phrases.
From Alyssa's story, we identified, "My heart skips a beat. I can't take my eyes off him. I never believed in soulmates until I met him. You mean the world to me. I love him more than words can express." All of these convey strong romantic or emotional feelings, perfect for situations where you want to show just how deeply you care.
From Paul and Caroline's story, we noted, "I've never felt so in tune with anyone else." Every moment with Caroline feels like a precious gift. I'll come back. My heart was breaking. A duet, waiting for the perfect moment to reunite. Love could transcend any distance. These highlight connection, appreciation, commitment, heartbreak, and the power of optimism in a relationship.
Keep in mind the importance of context. Some of these phrases like, I love him more than words can express, or you mean the world to me, are very strong and would typically be reserved for people who are truly close to your heart. Using them too casually might sound insincere or too intense.
We encourage you to practice by writing dialogues, short stories, or journal entries where you can naturally insert these phrases. You could even record yourself reading them out loud to improve your pronunciation and gain confidence.
In our next episode, we'll pivot from romantic themes to discussing goals and aspirations in English. We'll teach you how to talk about your dreams, whether they involve career ambitions, travel plans, or personal development. This vocabulary is crucial if you want to express what drives you and how you envision your future.
We'd love to hear from you. Have you tried using any of these romantic expressions in your own conversations? Or do you have a story similar to Alyssa's or Paul and Caroline's? Drop us a comment or send us a message on our social media pages. We're always eager to hear your experiences and questions.
Yes, please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with friends who are learning English. Every bit of support helps us reach more listeners who want to improve their skills in a fun, engaging way. If you have a moment, leaving a review is another fantastic way to help others discover our show.
Thank you for tuning in to the Learn and Talk English podcast. We hope today's stories and expressions inspire you to speak more boldly and describe your emotions with greater nuance. Don't forget that one of the best ways to get the most out of this episode is to listen to it multiple times. Each re-listen can help solidify the new vocabulary in your mind. Also, feel free to explore our other podcast episodes on the channel. There's plenty more to discover that can boost your English skills.
Exactly. Until next time, keep practicing, stay motivated, and remember that every new phrase you learn is another step toward fluency. We'll see you soon for our deep dive into talking about goals and aspirations in English.
Take care, everyone, and see you on the next episode.